Dear friends, English literature. Elizabethan and Jacobean drama. Balpony by Ben Jonson. Brief questions with answers. Brief questions 268 to 316. Question 268. What do the legacy hunters find Mosca doing when they come after hearing the news of Balpony's death? Answer. When the legacy hunters come hearing the news of Balpony's death, they find Mosca taking inventory and praise him for his care. Question 269. What do the legacy hunters want to do instead of mourning for Balpony's death? Answer. Instead of mourning for Balpony's death, the legacy hunters want to see the will. Question 270. What is the reaction of the legacy hunters to Mosca's name being on the will? Answer. They are appalled to see Mosca's name written on it. They are angry and demand an explanation from Mosca. Question 271. What does Mosca say when the legacy hunters want to know why their names are not on the will? Answer. When the legacy hunters want to know why their names are not on the will, Mosca says he is very busy because of the huge fortune thrown upon him. Question 272. How does Mosca dismiss Lady Woodby when she wants to know why his name is not on the will? Answer. Mosca dismisses Lady Woodby by reminding her that she offered to sleep with him if he would make her hear. Question 273. How does Mosca dismiss Corvino? Answer. Mosca dismisses Corvino by rebuking him that he has tried to win Balpony's property at the cost of his cuckoldom. Question 274. How does Mosca dismiss Corbichio? Answer. Mosca dismisses Corbichio by reminding him how he tried to persuade him to poison Balpony and went so far as to disown and disinherit his own son to win Balpony's wealth. Question 275. How does Mosca dismiss Baltor? Answer. Mosca dismisses Baltor by scolding him for betraying the law that he professes to uphold. Question 276. What did Lady Politic offer Mosca in return for Mosca's estate? Answer. Lady Politic offered Mosca 6 in return for Balpony's estate. Question 277. What did Corvino do in order to get Balpony's estate? Answer. Corvino unjustly surrendered his wife to Balpony for Balpony's estate. Question 278. What does the word cuckold mean? Answer. The word cuckold closely means a man married to an unfaithful woman. Question 279. What did Corbichio do in order to get Balpony's inheritance? Answer. Corbichio disinherited his own son in order to get Balpony's inheritance. Question 280. How does Mosca feel about Baltor not getting the inheritance? Answer. Mosca shows sympathy and feels sorry for Baltor. He shows regret that Baltor will not be made here. Question 281. Why does Peregrine introduce himself as a merchant to Sir Politic Woodby? Answer. Peregrine introduces himself as a merchant to Sir Politic Woodby in order to trick Sir Politic and scares him. Question 282. What does Peregrine do to trick Sir Politic? Answer. Peregrine has recruited 3 real merchants to help him out with the trick. Question 283. Who did Sir Politic plan to sell Venice to? Answer. Sir Politic planned to sell Venice to the Turks. Question 284. Who comes to arrest Sir Politic? Answer. The merchants come in and act as police that have come to arrest Sir Politic. Question 285. What has Sir Politic decided to dress up as to hide from the merchants? Answer. Sir Politic has decided to dress up as a dead tortoise and sit and wait until the man leave with a hope that they would not discover that this homunculus turtle is a man. Question 286. How does Peregrine make Sir Politic's situation worse? Answer. Peregrine makes Sir Politic's situation worse by provoking the man to hit and stand on the tortoise costume. Question 287. Why does Sir Politic decide to leave Venice forever? Answer. Politic decides to leave Venice forever since his reputation has been damaged. Question 288. Which legacy hunters does Moscow meet in the streets as he is celebrating? Answer. Corvino and Corvicchio. Question 289. How does Volpone torment the greedy trio in the street? Answer. In the streets, Volpone, disguised as a commentator, torments Corvicchio, Corvino, and Voltor by pretending he has heard the news that they inherited a fortune. Question 290. What are Moscow and Volpone going to do once they get dressed up in costumes? Answer. Moscow and Volpone are getting ready to go out and listen to the reactions of Corvicchio, Corvino, and Voltor at what they might say about Moscow winning the inheritance of dead Volpone. Question 291. Why do Moscow and Volpone get dressed up in costumes? Answer. They are dressed up so that no one will recognize them. Question 292. Who is Volpone searching for, disguised as a commentator, and why? Answer. Disguised as a commentator, Volpone headed out into the streets of Venice and was searching for Corvicchio, Voltor, and Corvino to see how unhappy they were about Moscow's sudden death. Question 293. What does Volpone do to accost his clients in the street? Answer. Volpone disguises as a commentator or a police officer to torment the legacy hunters in the street. Question 294. How does Volpone mocks the legacy hunters in the street? Answer. He mocks them by speaking of the legacy they have inherited from Volpone, alluding also to the means they had employed to secure his inheritance. Question 295. What does Volpone tell Corvicchio in the street? Answer. He tells Corvicchio that he exchanged his wills. Question 296. How does Volpone teach Corvicchio in the street? Answer. Volpone teaches Corvicchio, asking how much an experienced man can be fooled by a parasite so easily. Question 297. How does Volpone teach Corvino in the street? Answer. He teases Corvino by mentioning that his wife has shown herself to be a true woman. Question 298. What does Volpone tell Voltor in the street? Answer. Volpone asks him for permission to purchase a dilapidated dwelling in Volpone's estate. Question 299. Why does Corvino want to fight with Volpone? Answer. Corvino wants to fight with Volpone because of repetitive taunting by reminding him the shameful acts of his wife. Question 300. What does Voltor confess to the court in the second trial scene? Answer. In the second trial scene, Voltor confesses to the court that Bonario and Celia are innocent and Moscow is responsible for all the mischief. Question 301. To whom does Volpone confess that he is alive? Answer. Volpone confesses to Voltor that he is alive. Question 302. How does the judges learn that Volpone is alive? Answer. The judges learned that the commentator told Voltor that Volpone is alive. Question 303. What does Mosca demand when Volpone beseeches him to say in the court that Volpone is alive? Answer. When Volpone beseeches him to say that Volpone is still alive, Mosca demands half of his fortune. Question 304. Why is Volpone ordered to be whipped? Answer. The judges asked Volpone in the guise of the commentator to be whipped up for his insolent lie. Question 305. When does Volpone reveal his true identity to the court? Answer. When the judges asked Volpone in the guise of the commentator to be whipped for his insolent lie, Volpone finds himself in a desperate situation and throws off his disguise and reveals his true identity. Question 306. Why does Volpone decide to reveal himself in the court? Answer. Despite Volpone's pleas, Mosca refuses to give up his wealthy new rule, and Volpone decides to reveal himself in order to take Moscow down with him. Question 307. What is the final verdict of the judges regarding Bonario and Celia? And so finally, the judges order Bonario and Celia to be released. Question 308. What is the punishment of Mosca? Answer: Mosca for having taken the leading part in the fraud practice and for deceiving the court is to be whipped first and then sent as a galley slave. Question 309. How is Volpone punished at last? Answer: at last, Volpone is ordered to be imprisoned and to be in chains, while his property is to be confiscated and given to the hospitals of the incurables. Question 310. What punishment does Voltaire face at the end of the play? Answer: Voltaire's license to practice is cancelled and is banished from the state. Question 311. How is Corbichu punished? Answer: Corbichu is ordered to be sent to the monastery of San Espirito, and his property is given to his son Bonario. Question 312. How is Corbino punished at last? Answer: Corbino is ordered to return the dowry 3 times which Celia brought with her at the time of her marriage. She will go back to her father's house. Corbino shall be rowed about in Venice and then made to stand in the pillory. Question 313. What is a satire? Answer: a satire is a literary genre that uses irony, wit, and sometimes sarcasm to expose humanity's vices, folly, foibles, giving impetus to change or reform through ridicule. Question 314. What is the aim of satire? Answer: the aim of satire is the moral reform of the society. Question 315. What is comedy of humors? Answer: a comedy of humors refers to a type of drama that focused on characters, each character representing a type of personality. Question 316. How does Ben Jonson express his aim of writing in the prologue to Volpone? Answer: Ben Jonson's aim is to entertain the audience and to teach them a lesson. Thank you friends for watching my video.